they might refurbish those or repair them if you send them in. So we can look into that. I can look into that this week and get you some information on that. Because then that would be cheaper than buying a whole new sequencing system, because that would be a little more pricey. So,
Okay.
but if we just get those repaired, they might say, oh, we just need to throw a new like board in it, circuit board in it or something.
Okay.
We're good to go. So
Yeah, along with your amp.
the amp, yeah,
suggestion.
exactly.
Have we brought him on yet? Is he just a full-time employee?
Not yet, no. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna start working here. This would be a nice. This would be a nice and easy
Pollo
job.
Fierro. That place by Salatai, it's you know where that is?
Wrong count, yeah.
It's in a little corner there. Really good food. Yeah, really good Mexican food.
Those burritos were good. Well, you guys ready to get back in it?
Do it.
Okay. So, let's talk about the snare. Okay. So the snare, you'll notice we have a high pass on it because the snare is not going to reproduce a lot of low stuff, and we don't really want that anyways. So what we're going to do is do a high pass filter, and we're just going to start it at around 100 hertz. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. We'll bring the snare up. Okay, it's there. And then the next thing we're going to do is start
Can you
to...
take it off? And
Yeah,
oh,
of
here.
course. You might not hear a big difference.
Yeah, there is a difference. You can hear it. It's not,
You can hear
like you said, it's not big, but-
it cleans some of that kick drum out of there a little bit. But, so it's just trying to go through and clean things up just a little bit. So I think that's more what mixing is just trying to clean things and isolate things. And then the EQ is just a little bit of salt and pepper, you know. So some people think EQ is everything, but they don't use gates or compressors or the right microphone. So if you get all that right, then the EQ should be you should have minimal equalization, you know, it just makes your job easier. So, okay, so this snare drum, it's not too bad sounding, and I like to EQ the snare. I like to EQ stuff before I add the gate compressor, just so you're hearing the raw thing without any dynamics on it. Okay. So again, this is our low band, our low mid, our mid, and then our high band. Okay. We're not going to have to do much in the low kind of band area. But if you ever have a snare drum that is, you're just not getting a lot of like oomph out of it, like you're not getting a lot of, it's hard to describe. I'll just do it so you hear it, okay? So, around 180, 200 hertz, you'll listen and you'll hear me boost this, and you'll hear it. See how that's a little more meaty now? But that's a little too much. So, but if you do this, your snare drum's going to sound a little more thin. So if you need a little more body to your snare drum, try between like 150 and 200, and just sweep around in there and add it if you want a little more oomph or a little more body to your snare drum. This doesn't sound good,
What about
or this
pulling
sounds
that?
fun.
What
What?
about pulling that ring?
What?
The ring?
Oh yeah, we can. Well, that's more cymbal noise. Were you talking about when he's like that?
Yeah, you can hear it ring inside the chamber of the drum.
Yeah. So some of that is the drum. We can take some of that out. Well, I think that's in more of the low, or the higher mid-range stuff, and we'll sweep around in there and kind of take care of that. The snare it's not bad. It's a little poppy sounding, but we'll make that adjustment. Okay. The next thing, you can kind of play around with is the mid-range of the snare. So if the snare is a little too mid-rangey sounding, you can come in here and sweep around. Again, with drums, you can kind of, these are just starting points, but every drum kit is so different. And everybody tunes their drums a little bit different. So the information I'm giving you isn't cookie cutter. It's not going to work in every situation. So if you're having it, if it's a little too mid-rangey, kind of work in there. So let's just mess with some of this lower mid-range. I just want to play around with it. I like those stick hits on the rim. They're nice. Now if he's going to play the snare, actually. Oh. Let me go to where he's actually hitting it. See, I can go crazy in here.
That's good. Right?
See that?
Yeah, that's
See?
awesome.
You can kind of just play around with it.
That sounds like electric drums, right?
Sometimes if you're having a hard time hearing stuff too,
You go over it.
you can
essentially.
boost it.
Yeah.
And then you can really, oh yeah, that's what I'm
That's what
listening
I-
for.
yeah.
You can do that too.
Yeah.
Not maybe in a live situation. or maybe when it's just during sound check.
Right. That's too.
I'm going to kind of take out a little bit of 500 hertz. It's really hard to EQ so you can see the screen. And then here we'll listen to it on and on. Okay? Now we're going to move to kind of this higher stuff, okay? So let's go, I'm going to start at around 2 kilohertz. So, no, it doesn't really sound that good. Now let's sweep around a little bit. See how we're adjusting some of that? That will be a little more crazy. Sorry, I'm just having fun listening to it. So you can kind of just go through there and play with it. You know, this snare drum doesn't sound bad. It's clear. It has some good body to it. It's not bad. So. So yeah, that's just a good starting point. The snare drum on that is already, you know, it's gonna sound perfect coming
Right.
out of it because it was done in a studio and somebody had 100 hours to perfect
You
it.
didn't say it was perfect, did you?
No, it's not
You
perfect.
did. You did
No.
say it was perfect.
You like the electric drums. Don't be afraid of real drums.
I'm afraid of weapons of war.
Okay.
So in your headphones, when you solo it, it has nothing to do with the slider, right?
It's pre.
But
yeah,
it is post effects,
EQ and stuff. Yeah.
but it's just not post mix.
It's not
Post
post fader. Yep, exactly. So if you go here and I look at the C solo buses over here. So it's pulling the solo is at the very end of
Okay.
the channel,
Um,
but it's pre fader.
But so the only way to hear post fader is to hear like solo the master out.
Yeah, if you wanted to hear like what your overall mix sounded like in the headphones, but you don't want to mix with headphones. The only thing you want to do when you're doing live sound, you want to use the headphones to just isolate stuff. So if you're having a hard time hearing the difference between two guitars or something, instead of pushing one up, you could just put the headphones on, solo between the two, and listen, and you're like, oh, that's what it sounds like, and then take the headphones off, and then you'll be like, oh, that is what it sounds like. That's where it is. That's really what you would use the headphones for.
Okay.
Or if you want to pre-cue something up. So if you were running, if the band was playing and the pastor was back here and you wanted to sound check his mic real quick, you could have everything hooked up and then just say, hey, talk real quick, and then listen in your headphones. Okay, you're good, man, and then get back to work. So that's what the headphones are for. It's more for trying to just pick stuff out that you're having a hard time hearing, especially with like guitars and keyboards. Then it gets really hard to kind of decipher some of that. So that's where the headphones really help.
Cool.
And if you're mixing like tracks, 3 keyboards, 2 guitars, an acoustic guitar, it gets really crazy in all that mid-range area. So it's really hard to hear what is the keyboard doing. And then if you solo it, then you know, oh, that's what the keyboard sounds like. So,
Okay.
but yeah, when you're mixing, don't mix with headphones, because everyone's not wearing headphones.
Well, it's such a different sound.
It is. It's totally
It's a
different.
completely different sound.
Exactly. So, maybe if you're just playing this back and editing the sermon or something, then you could do it. But try to just keep it. Use the headphones for that. So, so we're gonna do the noise gate now on the snare. Oh, we already did the noise gate. No, we didn't do the gate.
Not
yet.
on the snare.
We did it. You can turn it off and reset it.
Okay, so do the gate again. So we turn it on. We're gonna bring the threshold all the way up. So now nothing's going through it. The gate's not opening at all. It's completely closed. There's this thing called key input. So what that does is it's like a side chain kind of thing. So you could tell another instrument to trigger that noise gate. So the reason you would do that is it's an old rap music thing. That's where it kind of started. Is somebody took a tone oscillator and they had 50 hertz going through it, so low frequency. And what they did was they wanted, well, every time they hit like a kick drum or something, every time they hit the kick drum, they wanted that false low frequency to come through. So that low frequency was coming through on a channel,
Okay.
and then they put a noise gate on that tone oscillator on that channel at 50 hertz. And so every time they hit the kick drum, it would tell that noise gate to open. So that way when they hit the kick, you get that kick sound, but you also get all that low end sound at the same time. So it creates like a fake low frequency
Isn't that what
sound.
a bass guitar is for?
No, it's just to beef up. I've used it a few times. It's a rap music thing, but I've used it before on like one time I was mixing this thing and they had this kick drum, but it was sideways set up on a thing, and the kick drum just didn't have a lot of oomph to it. So I did the side chain, so when they hit it, it was this fake like low frequency sound. So it made it sound like it was this huge giant drum thing. So you could use it in that kind of thing. Or sometimes I've used it on toms if they're like really weak and they just don't have a lot of oomph to them, you could use it on that. So just kind of a cool thing that you can do. And this has a built-in tone
Oh, okay.
generator on it. So that's kind of cool.
That's what I was wondering. You'd have to create.
So
some
yeah,
tone,
you
but-
could go to a channel and you could make the source come from the oscillator.
Okay. Huh.
So kind of cool, which is sweet. But I don't know if you'll use that here. Just kind of useless information.
That's what we like.
Electronic drum.
But if you're wondering what the key input does, that's what it is. So the threshold's all the way up. So we're gonna slowly bring that down.
Your
What's that?
it's not all the way. Okay. Yeah.
That was the range.
You were just getting
Oh, I see.
bleed when you
I
brought
see
it
what
all the
you're
way
saying.
up.
Yeah. So he's not doing a lot of hits at the end here. much, so we're going to bring it down. You want to bring it. That's not good enough because we're still hearing the hi-hat and stuff like that. So slowly start to bring it back. Here's the extreme.
Yep.
And then slowly bring it back to you so you start hearing it. That's obviously it's not opening well, so we want to keep going back. Still too gaiety. This is a hard one.
Yeah.
Then this thing down here is the range. So that's how much it's attenuated, or how much the gate is going to attenuate it. So if I have it at 0, it's not going to do anything. But if I go to negative infinity, that means when the gate is closed, it's completely closed. Okay? But if I go back, it's not going to do anything. So if it's sounding too gaty too, you can kind of bring back some of the range. That means when it's in the gate, it's going to attenuate it by 47 dB. So we'll go back to threshold. And then you listen. Here's what you're not hearing, which is good. We don't want to hear all that. Now it's gone. So now when he hits the snare, you're only going to hear the snare. See, there's a little bit of hi-hat. Let's tighten that up a little bit. Okay. Then again, there we'll adjust our attack. Hold, release. Too high. See if our hold is too aggressive or too short. It'll sound a little weird. It's a little too attacky. See if our release is too short too.
Mastering it. That's what Brad's for.
What?
That's what Brad's for.
I don't think so.
Let's bring back some range.
I've been doing this the least out of all of them.
No way.
I guess 6 years, I think.
Yo,
6 or 8.
you got
But he was 20 or something, right?
Not me.
Your brother's?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm excited for like a new era. I'm like understanding enough to like start moving better.
Yeah.
As well as, like,
Okay, let's compress this a little bit.
Survival mode.
So again, we'll turn it on. We'll bring back the threshold a little bit.
It's too
Yeah, this is a hard one.
It sounds too compressed.
Let's try that again. Okay, back to the compressor. In the snare, you want it to be a little more compressed. Don't be afraid to compress it a little bit. Some people go crazy and put like a insane. See if I compress it too much. You know, just smushing it. That doesn't sound very good. So we'll bring our threshold back. Then we need to bring our makeup gain up. Just a little bit. back the cymbals, it picks up some of that other noise. That's kind of just the drum so far. Okay. The next thing we're gonna move over to our toms now. Okay. So I'm gonna find a spot where he's playing the toms a lot, which is in here. The toms have a lot of bleed to them. Okay, toms, we're gonna do a low pass. Now that's a nasty ring on that snare drum. You gotta take care of that too. I'm just gonna low pass it a little bit. I'm gonna try that. Okay, and then with toms, that kind of low
Can you make that
frequency
go away?
stuff. What?
Can you make that go away?
The what?
That.
That's the tom. That's what you're supposed to hear.
You gotta have the tom.
That's what you're supposed to hear. The doom. That's the tom. That's what we want to hear. That's
Right
good.
there.
That's good.
I just don't like the high tom there.
It is. I think it's a high tom.
Yeah, those
It
are
just sounds funny isolated.
maybe but without the whole full kit by themselves.
There's a lot of bleed on this tom, as you can hear. And he's not hitting the tom a lot. Okay? With toms, it's again it's the same thing as the kick drum. There's kind of some low mid frequencies that get a little muddy. Okay? So I like to start kind of in the 200, 300 range. Hard to. Come on, hit the toms. He's not hitting them a lot on this song. Yeah, he's barely hitting the toms on this song, but
Can you cause that to loop?
yeah, we can loop this part. Loop. So now it'll loop. Now we're going to work on some of this high frequency stuff. If you right click this and you highlight loop, it'll loop the selection over and over again. So. I'm going to loop a different section. I'm not hearing that ring too much. Back a little bit.
See, that's better.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that boom at the end.
Yeah.
Put it on. Get the actual.
Let it ring a little.
There we go. That's a little better. Can't totally eliminate a lot of it. We can kind of take some of it out. The other thing too is we might be able to just get rid of some of that ringing sound when we put the noise gate on.
Put a gate on.
So let's put the gate on real quick.
Our track is skipping.
So the goal is to eliminate every other sound but the tom. in the gate.
Yep.
So the snare, this high. Okay. Got it.
Because you'll pick up on the other mics.
Okay.
This is hard because this tom isn't isolated very well. It's getting a lot of bleed. So if this was a live situation, the first thing we would probably do is try to go down there and see where the mic was positioned. If it's right under a cymbal, we'd probably move it around. Or if it was positioned too far out, we would want to make sure we would position it in more. So now you'll hear it only pop through. It's really hard because he's not hitting them a lot too. The other beautiful thing is when you're doing sound check, you can just have the
Have them hit it.
hit it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Sounds like it's cutting it off too quick.
Yep. So we're gonna adjust our threshold a little bit, and then we're gonna release it a little slower. Then we're gonna work on we're gonna attack it a little faster
Yeah.
because he hits it really fast.
It does.
So let's release it a little more.
But with the hold even a little bit more.
Mess with the hold too. Yep. Because let's mess with the hold. Let's try that. That'll keep the gate open a little bit longer. That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
That's
we
good.
go. Good ear, guys. That's awesome. Okay. Now we can compress this a little bit. I feel like I can hit it. It's so hard to dial this in because it's barely. This is a good one. We got a tough one. On off.
Sounds simple.
Well, you just, it's not constant enough to
Right.
figure it out.
It's hard to hear yet. So let's try that. Okay.
Sounds about the same.
So we're compressing it a little bit. You can hear that. And we'll bring this all in. Okay. Let's do cymbals now. Cymbals. Let's high pass that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just do like 100 something, 200 hertz or something. Don't want too much of that stuff in there.
Now you
Without
EQing
being
for
too much?
cymbals or EQing for overhead?
Overhead. We want to hear the tone still, but we don't want to hear too much low frequency. That doesn't sound good.
Sounds like a Walkman.
Yeah. Keep going back. Now we're hearing the tones a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. We're not getting a lot of low frequency out of it, but we don't want a lot of low frequency out of it.
As a live one that you can see where
Yeah, although it's going to be a little late and you don't want to rely on your eyes anyway, so it's probably better to just have one.
There we go. Now let's bring down some of this pop on the snare a little bit. See how we only heard the toms when you hit them, and it didn't sound too funky. It's there, and it's clean.
yeah, it does.
Let's go walk downstairs and listen to our tom. Because maybe The other thing too is the kick. It just needs a little more attack. Would you guys say, like a little more click to it?
Yeah, I would.
So I'll add some of that. How's that?
I said it's good.
You guys like that? Okay, good. Okay, cool. Let's come back up here and we'll work on the bass.
I mean, because of the range that they're in, to your ears they're gonna feel louder because your ears are just sensitive to that range. But actual like dB level, it'd be interesting to measure it, but they're not that far off.
There's coffee in the kitchen if you guys wanted to.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. And I experienced that with going to a church with a lot of old people. They come back. This is way too loud. No, it's really almost exactly the same. You're just super sensitive to it.
Now, this is gonna be a pretty quick. This is gonna be pretty quick because this bass guitar sounds really good. So we're not gonna have to do much work to it. So I go over to bass, and you'll listen. It sounds pretty dang good.
It's amazing what a good bass player can do for your job.
He has a little bit of line noise in there. That's just his bass. But the tone is really nice. It sounds good. It's clean. So
What's the line noise that I'm hearing? Like tell me.
it's just the
Like when
his
you-
DI and his whole pedal board rig. You hear that hiss?
It's like when you take a headphone jack and you touch it to a piece of metal or something instead
I
of
gotcha.
plugging it in.
It's just like a really high hiss in there. That's just some line noise. That's all it is. That'll get masked. See, watch. You won't hear it when I
Sure.
gone. So it's not that big of a deal. So not that big of a deal. So with the bass, on a basic cue, again with guitars, you want to try to preserve their tone. So guitar players a lot of them work really hard on their tone, and they hopefully spend time at home before practice and get their tone dialed in. Some don't care and they just show up. But that's why it's important to make sure with electric guitars and bass guitars to familiarize yourself with how it's supposed to sound. So if the bass player has an amp or something, just go sit in front of it while he plays and just hear how it sounds. And most of the time, you know, musicians know how their instrument should sound because they play it all the time. So you want to try to also honor them to at the same time because they work hard to create a tone, and you want to, and your job is to accurately replicate what the band is doing, not alter it too much. You only want to alter a guitar sound if it just doesn't sound good, or maybe it needs a little more oomph, or maybe it's a little too harsh. Those are really the things you're going to do. And if the guitar just doesn't overall sound good, maybe suggest, hey, can we try a different guitar? Or can you try a different setting on your pedal board? And then that would be a better thing to do than, you know, doing some hack job EQ or something like that. So again, it always goes back to the musician and you know, making sure.
It always goes back to me.
No, in some way.
Oh, boy.
In some way. So let's play this again. Okay, we're gonna turn our EQ on. I'm not gonna really do a high pass. We don't really need one on the bass. So if you want a little more oomph out of the bass drum, it's kind of between 60 and 80. So I'm gonna start at 60.
the clicking of him
Just a
switching.
little.
Can you take that out? Or is that something you should talk
That's
to
the
him
player. No,
Okay.
it's fine. That's how.
I think
That's how
that
it's
should
supposed to
be it.
sound.
That's how it sounds.
It's supposed to sound like that. So that's kind of just a base EQ on the. If it's a little too muddy in the mid range, you can come back here and kind of sweep some out. Maybe just take a little bit of that out. So again, this is a pretty gentle EQ. We're not doing too much to it. We're just adding a little more low end, taking a little bit of that string noise out, and that's it. Because overall, it's a good sounding bass. So if you did it flat, that still sounds good,
Yeah.
you know. So you just don't need to do a lot of work. So again, it goes back to use your ears. If it sounds good, it is good, you know. You can compress guitars, but most of the time they're going to compress it on their board anyways. So sometimes you don't have to smush them or do any compression. But we're going to just compress this just a touch. This would be a really compressed bass. You hear that? So we're not going to compress it that much. Just a little bit of compression. We'll do more of a softer knee.
The bridge.
This might be his bass amp. It's not. Okay. Then we'll bring everything in. Not bad. So you guys can go down there and walk around if you want, or we can stay up here and move the keyboards.
And that little bit of vocal we can hear, it's just like leading through.
The overheads. And that's fine. That's not going to hurt anything.
More like the ambient, like reverb-ish.
Yeah.
type sound.
The overhead sounded a little loud to me downstairs, but they don't sound
Okay.
loud up here. So
Okay.
I don't know.
We can bring, I think I agree with you. What?
There's no bass down here.
He's not really playing that much on this part here. Hold on, I'll go back.
I didn't hear him, but I didn't think he was playing.
I'll go back to a part where How's that? That's too much, huh?
Sounds really good up here. But it's a different sound.
They're supposed to.
What do you think, guys?
Depending
What are your
on
thoughts?
you wanna do. I would-
It's subjective. It's
yeah,
art.
Personally,
Yeah.
I would bring up the bass and the bass drum just slightly, but probably
Okay.
not for church service either.
What do you
That's
think?
not
What do you think, Chris?
Which is
I do the same.
You would do
I
the
bring it
same?
up a little bit.
Have a little more? Okay, try it. I'll bring it up. All right, that's drums and bass. Cool. Let's add the keyboard in next.
Foundation.
The keyboard will be pretty simple.
You don't want to ride that one.
Not going to be much to the keyboard. So
That's a little, just a little.
You got? Would that be too loud for church here?
We always
The
had
service?
It was a bit warm, I think.
Okay. Cool.
So we try to try to keep consistency amongst people. We use this.
Oh, you use the
meter.
dB meter. Okay.
I don't know. That's probably a horrible idea.
95?
I mean,
95 is when I left. And I was like,
any way
we-
in which
they
we can
started
try to
at like a
standardize it.
90 or
trying to,
92.
No, it's very good to use a dB meter.
Average is 90 maybe.
half
A lot of people do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You just don't want it to be.
I think 90 average.
talking about the same
spikes
thing
with
you
Oh,
just
they
did.
are. Okay. You don't want to be the
asking the same
DB
thing.
police either. You wanna eventually get it to where people just know like what sounds good, what feels good. So that comes with training. Whoever you're
Well, let's see.
training,
Hit it again. We'll see what it's at. Because
Yeah.
I just try to keep
and
it.
the level's
on the
gonna be
drums.
way less up here than it is down there.
Right.
So when we're finished mixing everything, let's go down there and see what we're hitting on the A weight.
Yeah.
Okay? Because we want to use A, because if you use the other weights, they accommodate low frequency level, but we don't really care about that because it's not it's gonna be, it could say it's like 100 dB, but you're also getting the low frequency, which we don't care how loud that is. We just care how loud all the mid and high stuff
The
is.
high stuff.
So we want to do A weight,
Exactly.
which filters out that low frequency stuff.
Okay.
So A weight is the most accurate one for
Human.
actually like hearing what would be too loud or what would damage your ears or stuff like that. So
That's the name for the
yeah,
measurement.
there's a little button on there that should say A weight.
So I don't
If you
think
turn it
so.
on,
So-
see it says DBA, so
Yeah.
it defaults to A. So you're in good shape.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So
Okay. What's
some
the
you
other-
some you can choose for different. Those are for different applications. Acousticians use them for like HVAC noise if they want to
Oh,
see how
sure.
loud the hum is
Yeah.
of a HVAC unit, or people on like highways who are doing noise control.
Mhm.
Because there's acoustic
Noise.
companies that like design highway walls to diffuse sound so it doesn't leak into neighborhoods, and they use dB different measurements for that kind of stuff. So, but in live sound, just do A and you're golden. So, okay, keyboard. You can know the difference. Here's our keys.
It's a political thing because people would complain that this is where we're at.
I'm not, now you'll notice my faders aren't at 0. I'm not going to go through and mess with all these trims because we're going to just set all new gains when we sound check.
Yeah, sound check, yeah.
So it's just a pain in the butt to do that. So our resolution's okay, but I would want to be up in here a little more. And if you're getting too much noise from Pro Tools, like too much hot of a level, what we can do is just turn down the input trim. So I'm just going to turn that down. There we go. I just brought the input trim down a little bit. So now it can be a little more up towards 0. Okay.
Was that the input trim on that one or on
Yeah,
all?
on this channel.
Just on that channel.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So if you do the mic pre, it's not going to do anything because it's a digital input trim. So,
So that wasn't the gain. You have a gain
no,
and you have a trim.
you have a gain and you have a trim.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, keyboard. Sounds pretty good to me. Not what you have to do. So we were talking earlier before you guys got here, but most keyboards nowadays, like back in the 90s and 80s, keyboards didn't sound very good, or you bought a certain keyboard for a certain tone or sound. But now, like, you have a X8, that's a really nice keyboard, and it sounds really good. So you're not going to really have to do much to it. So don't be tricked that you have to like EQ the keyboard and all this stuff. Again, you're going back to, we're just trying to accurately replicate what's going on. And just like a guitar or it's no different than like playing back a track or something. You just want to preserve that sound. So that's why you don't have to do much to it. Okay. So if there's a certain frequency you're hearing though that's a little harsh or something, then you would want to take it out. But this sounds pretty good. It's not bad sounding. It's not harsh. It's very smooth. It cuts through just enough.
It's like a little Rhodes.
It does sound like a Rhodes, yeah.
Even those really high ones don't sound any different than the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's not shrinking through or anything.
Exactly. So keyboards, you're not going to have to do a lot of work to them. So
You don't have an electric trap, do you?
No, not on this.
You guys don't use amp or don't use speakers. You just go directly from the guitar.
Like an electric guitar?
Yeah.
Well, today he's gonna bring an amp. So we're gonna need to mic an amp today. Or unless there's a line out from that.
Oh yeah, let's mic it up.
How would you EQ a line out? Because there's nothing to go off of. Go up the stage and try to figure out.
Just run it more flat and listen to it.
Okay.
But I don't. When I play I'm not an electric guitar player. I just play it just like almost like an acoustic. So I just go right from the line out on my pedal board.
Oh, okay. And there's
And it
nothing
sounds
wrong with
good.
that. That's the cleanest way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm not into the amp thing, and it has like amp
Modeling
on it.
Yeah.
So he's really proud of his amp. I've never heard him play electric guitar actually.
Oh, okay.
But I have heard him play, but I've never heard this amp, so I don't know how it's gonna respond.
Sure.
But we can mic
Yeah.
it, and he said he loves it. So
Sure.
Chris Ponce.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
So
I bet he loves his amp.
yeah, he's not. I mean, he's not gonna kill it or anything like
Okay.
that. So.
In
'Cause
this,
he's not playing cajon.
this
He's
is
a
a
drummer.
small room
He's a drummer.
too, so it's a little trickier with guitar amps in a room like this. You just have to.
Would you
Have-
put it in the
That's
closet?
gonna
You put it in the closet and mic it, or no? That'd be weird.
If you can acoustically treat the closet,
Oh.
if you put it in the
Yeah, it's gonna
closet,
bounce around too much.
it's just going to create a ton of reflections. It's
Yeah.
going to sound not good. The other thing you could do is take a more traditional approach and not really bring it through the speakers. And this works in smaller rooms. Just have the guitar amp
Be the sound.
be the sound. And then the
Oh,
PA is
sure.
just there for everything else. So if you're having problems with the guitar player and they just will not turn it down, or some have to crank it up because they want a certain tone, and you're still having problems, just don't fight it anymore, because sometimes you'll always lose the battle. Just let the guitar come from the stage. In this small of a room, you can get away with it, but in a much larger room, obviously, you're not going to have problems. Like in a big room, you can crank your amp up, and you can hardly hear it on the stage.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So, or it'll get masked by everything else.
If there's a line out of that amp, would you do that? And is it the same? You still get that same tonal quality, or?
No, you're not going to get the same, because people go through an amp because the amp is going to color the sound a certain way, give it a tone. So you want to capture that tone by miking up the amp.
Just mic.
Or you can say, we don't want any stage noise, and you need to go direct.
Right.
That's another thing you can do too.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Like a sound box.
there's a new thing out called a Kemper. If you guys have heard of that, it's a new. It's an amp modeler, and it's loaded with every amp imaginable, and like the best guitar players, A and B, between the real thing and the Kemper, like blindfold tests, and they cannot notice a difference.
Really?
So the modeling is very, very good.
Huh.
It's like the best modeling, but it's like $3,000.
Ah.
But it's really, really nice. I mean,
Huh.
it's a fine piece of equipment.
Yeah,
So
Devin's got. I don't know if he's got that one, but he's got
Okay.
a model that's pretty good.
yeah, so
Hmm.
yeah, the Kemper's cool, and then it has balanced line outputs on it, so you don't have to do a DI or anything. It just balanced line right into the
I
system.
don't think his amp is anything crazy. It's like more of an old vintage kind of
Yeah.
sound, warm
Yep.
sound.
And that's fine too. So
Yeah.
you're either old school or new school, whatever. So, but the Kempers have been cool. A lot of churches have been starting to use them because they can still have that really awesome guitar sound, but they don't have to fuss with,
Sure.
some.
A lot more control.
Yeah, because in some churches you have to have just a room full of guitar isolation boxes, and then you load them with amps, and then you have internal
Mm.
wall panels where you patch all that in and stuff like that, and that's how you isolate them. But so it's nice not having to mess with that stuff anymore. But so that's the keyboard. Pretty simple. With like a piano, obviously you're gonna have to do some work on the EQ for that, probably. If you have really nice microphones, probably not gonna have to do much to a piano. But most situations, you're gonna have to do a little bit to the piano. If a keyboard is ever sounding really dead or it's just not very bright, you can bring some 8 kilohertz, 7, 9 kilohertz back into it, and that'll brighten up that keyboard sound. So that works well as well.
We typically only use that keyboard as like right now like a piano sound.
Like a grand sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, have
Perfect.
We'll
We'll take a listen to it. If we need to brighten it up, or if it's a little too bright, we can bring that down. So it just depends. Okay. So we'll
Do you
bring.
know what the IP address is?
I haven't plugged this into the network yet.
Okay. I assume
do
did
that
you
in a
go
little bit.
S for 21?
That's right. Yep. So
We have iCloud.
We see it. Sweet.
well, let's bring everything back in now.
When you stick it to Apple, give them
All right. What do you guys think? You want to listen to it down there?
Down there, I bet the piano is hot. Just because it's so hot, it's hot.
See, you'll notice there's space for every single instrument. The keyboard's there, the bass is there, the drums are there.
Yeah, 'cause it's saying it's only 5.
Maybe it is up here. Well, I think it is 7.
Typically, I'm sure this is pretty cheesy, but it was working. Decibel X.
7.
Yeah, you're looking at 84. That's about what I was saying.
And then maybe during this part of the song, he's dancing around on a little bit. Maybe boost that up.
Yeah.
That kick is perfect down there. I wish there was more bass playing, not necessarily.
So feel free to mix these parts in a little bit and take it back out. Because during this part of the song, the keyboard's kind of driving things. So you
Yeah.
want to make sure we can kind of hear that.
Sure.
So. Cool. That's keyboard. Now let's do the acoustic.
Working still.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So
Best.
The
Most
best.
important instrument.
Best American kid.
this has to be the loudest thing ever. Crank it up, man. Some people go a little crazy. All you hear is acoustic guitar. You know, I hate that.
No, I don't like that at all.
So, with this style of music, sort of like light rock, the acoustic isn't something necessarily that should be totally at the forefront. There's certain songs where it needs to be a little more present, or maybe in certain sections of the song, you want it to stand out a little more. But you want the snare and the electric and sometimes the keyboard to drive the song a little bit more than the acoustic. Because an acoustic guitar over time, just the way it's played in worship music, it can be, if it's all you're hearing, it can be a little abrasive if that's all you're hearing the whole time. So you don't want it to drive the song too much. You want more of the snare and the electric kind of to drive it a little more. But if you don't have an electric, you kind of want to use maybe the keyboard a little more or the acoustic. It just depends on what they're doing, and it depends on the song. But try to keep in mind that you don't want to just rip it with the acoustic. So
I was always told the general rule, and definitely song to song, is it's more of a percussionist instrument than it is a pitched instrument.
More rhythmic.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good way to put rhythmic. Yeah. Okay, so let's work on the acoustic. I'm gonna just bring that trim down a touch. So
Gone
this,
over the trim and gain. Did you go over that yesterday?
I did yesterday. Yeah.
I know, I'll talk to you about that later then.
I'll show you when we're sound checking. So, what are your thoughts about this
Instead of
acoustic?
strumming
Just by listening to it, what are your thoughts on it?
He's tapping it instead of strumming it. It's not typical.
Yep. He's kind of.
He's tapping with his finger on the bridge and stuff. That's
Yeah.
why
Oh, I
he's
see.
getting the
Yep.
sound.
I
So
pulled
it's
it
a lot
on
more
the right
percussive
sound.
than normal.
It is. Yep.
Yeah, it's not like a strum. So it's not typical. It's like a.
It's
not harsh.
it's
tapping.
also really.
Like it's bright.
It's very compressed too. So, whatever he's coming through out of, it's pretty compressed. It's a little thin and mid-rangey sounding. There's not a lot of guts to it. See how compressed it sounds?
Yeah, it doesn't sound that good.
So it's not a. So sometimes you're gonna run into this, and this is good. It's weird. Everything else on this song, this track is good, but his guitar isn't good. And then when you hear his vocals, it's not good. So so let's get to work on it. This is gonna be a little more tricky.
Is there a button, like a less suck button? Like turn down the suck?
I wish there was a less suck.
It's right here. This is the list.
No, that's you guys. You work your magic. Okay, so we're not even gonna touch the compressor on this because it's too compressed. You know, it's smush. Okay. Let's do a high pass filter first, okay? Just to get anything out there that's already there. And I'm gonna do more like 80 on this. I don't want to suck out too much of it because we want to add a little bit more body to this acoustic guitar. So that's what we're gonna do first. I'm just gonna slide these over so they're out of my way. It's gonna be hard. This is gonna be a tricky one. So I'm gonna add a little bit more body. So I'm gonna start kind of in the low mid range, okay? This is a tough one. The way he's playing. I'm just gonna scroll through this. He's playing sucks. Let me go back to this part. So if you go too crazy on the body, you'll get that tapping. You'll get too much tapping. See, you hear when I'm boosting it, you hear it a lot more. That kind of takes some of it out. See how that would be too thin sounding? That sounds like crap. Okay, let's work on some of this mid-range.
for a band setting as opposed to a single channel.
What? Oh, in a band?
Yeah.
No, I would isolate it.
I've been told that if you EQ, so you've got pockets. So like the acoustic, you pull the low because the bass and keyboard kind of cover that already. So there's not too much interference.
Well, you want to create room, but it's okay if you add that in. You want to create room by, when you say make space, it's more you're using gates and low pass filters to clean some of that stuff up that isn't there. But you don't want to castrate your guitar, with no low end at all. You want to make sure you can still.
Well, you
it's
boosted
still there.
the low end, though.
I did a little, some of that low mid, which is fine because it needed a little more help in that area. But it's okay to do that. You want to make sure things still sound good, because if the band were to drop out and it was just the guitar and you EQ'd it to blend in with everything else, it wouldn't sound good.
Yeah, you'd have to do it under the assumption that the guitar's
so
always
you
going
want
to
to go through one at a time and get everything sounding the best as possible, and then your mix will just flow together.
Okay.
So, okay. So, his acoustic's a little wonky. Let's kind of mix it in with everything. We're not going to spend some stuff you're like, you just can't spend too much time on it because what you're given, I mean, this isn't horrible. There's way worse guitars I've heard, but it's not ideal. It's not generally what we want to hear. It's overcompressed. He's playing it weird. It's a little thin and bright sounding. So, but when we add in the rest of the band, it'll kind of mask some of that, and the guitar will kind of cut through a little better. So, he could also have done that with his guitar, because if he plays a lot of live stuff, he might have done that on purpose, so it cuts through a little better when it's being mixed. So it just depends. But wait till we get the vocals. Those are a nightmare. Let's go down and listen. Perfect. All right, so we got our bass mix dialed in. That's good. Yeah, it's best to just work your way up, get all the music done, and then the band, all the instruments, and then we'll do the vocals. So there's only one vocal on this, so it's not too crazy. He's a very interesting voice. You'll hear it, and he's kind of messy on the microphone, so you'll also hear some of that too. Okay. All right, here we go. So, first thing, I'm just gonna bring down this trim a little bit. Very interesting voice.
Floating off to nowhere, watching as the days go by. I would like to see her try it, chasing me away.
He's really spin on it into the microphone. So we're gonna brighten this up. We're gonna add some clarity, and we're gonna get rid of some of that low mid-range. Okay. Okay. First thing we're gonna
talking
do.
With their mouths full.
We're gonna high pass this sucker. Okay.
They're running to the kitchen.
That's exactly how I said it.
I had this really good like worship recording, but I lost it. So I think it's on some other computer, but
It works.
this was the only track I had, so it helps. It's still educational. So, okay, so we're gonna filter out some of this.
Philosophy that don't mean nothing.
All right, let's clean up some of this low mid stuff. Okay, he's a little
I
messy.
heard what you said in
Find
the
my camera.
Well, that's on the notes, so we'll get it off later. If you're gonna try to
And he's like this far from the microphone.
Way too far.
so I can install an app or
On what?
Come on, get on the microphone.
that's your Apple ID, so type /Apple ID if you want.
honey,
There he goes. Okay.
snoring on the sofa, going in the army, drinking in the early light. I would like to see her try, chasing me away.
Get back on the microphone. Okay. So,
Oh, airplane, high above the desert,
Cleaner.
okay, so we got rid of some of that
taking you to
sound in there.
somewhere,
That's the best way to describe it.
floating in
Grunt.
a hazy sky. I would like to see her try, chasing me away.
Okay. And now he's 5 feet from the microphone.
Pulled back from the mic.
Yeah.
This is a good recording, actually. It's more realistic.
you're right,
It's
yeah.
not like
Yeah.
a perfect, polished
The
recording.
philosophy
So
that don't mean nothing.
So if you want to add a little more airy sound, you can bring up 2K.
Then I heard what you said.
See how that really cuts
in
now?
the
Can you go to 4? I just
You
want to hear
want
what it
some of that?
sounds
Yeah,
like.
of course.
He's actually singing.
He's not singing for a while.
I hear a lot of.
honey,
Here's 4.
snoring on the soul,
You're not
Getting
as
a
much
lot
clear
of-
as I thought it
Kind of that sound.
going in
I thought it might be
the
clearer than 2, but I.
army,
Yeah,
No,
that's not the
2
case.
is better. It's a little more low.
drinking in the
See how it's like
early
right in your
light.
face now?
I would like to see
That could be that's a little much.
her try,
Okay.
chasing me away.
So he has like his S's and his
His sibilants.
like his sibilants. Yeah, like it's like a really like a lot of I don't know what the word is.
Oh,
It's a lot there. It's like
airplane,
There's a lot of sibilants. Yeah, so we
So how do you get rid of that?
Yeah.
The de-esser.
So that's the next
The
thing we're
de-esser.
gonna do.
There is one, but it doesn't work very well.
I never use de-essers. Just cut like 8 to 10 K. So
I've never heard anyone like the de-esser, but they have it.
so
I would like to see her try chasing me away.
Backs off the mic again.
The sofa
okay,
Well,
that's
that's
in
nice
this
already.
8K range.
going in the army,
So you could really lose
Now you don't
about
hear
that.
it.
You don't hear it,
Fuck.
no.
drinking in the early
Say
light.
an F.
I would like to see
There you go.
her
That's pretty
try
smooth. Okay, let's
It's better.
chasing
Pepsi
me
and Coke it.
away.
Pepsi, Coke.
What are you singing?
Oh,
Right now it's yellow.
airplane, high above the desert,
I'm gonna take this down a little bit.
taking you to somewhere, floating in a hazy sky.
This is a pretty
I would
smooth.
like to see her
It's not
try
hurting
chasing me away.
For time.
Apparently you start doing it either.
Honey,
Every time he goes away, it sounds like it's making
snoring
cute.
on the sofa.
See, you could bring some of that up, or
Going in the army,
if you're really having trouble getting
drinking
like
in
clarity,
the early light.
that'd be too much.
I would like to see
how it gets
her
harsher?
try chasing me away.
There's nothing I can do about his
Yeah. His
Gurgling.
his
weird
speech impediment.
gurgling. Yeah. So we'll go to compressor.
Oh,
I'm just
airplane,
gonna do a 2 to 1 on you, just a little bit.
high above the desert,
Would you do like a medium
taking
knee
you
for a
to
vocal?
somewhere.
What's that?
Would you do a medium knee or a round?
Floating in a
I'm gonna do a soft knee.
hazy
Oh,
sky. I would like to see her try chasing me away.
That's
He's
too
going
much.
away.
Honey,
There we go.
snoring on the
So we're barely compressing it. I'm
sofa.
gonna bring this down a little bit.
Going in the army, drinking in the early light. I would like to see her try chasing me
When
away.
he's down those parts, I want to compress that a little more.
Can you go back to like the very beginning of that portion? 'Cause
song?
I think he
Oh,
no, just the beginning of where you've been
airplane,
coming.
Yeah, sure.
Because he comes in really loud, and
He
it probably,
does.
that'd be interesting to hear.
Let's see how we're hitting it.
honey,
Oh, that might-
Very well.
that's
Yeah,
better.
we took some of that out.
snoring on the sofa.
I'm gonna bring some of that gain back up.
Going in the army, drinking in the early light.
So we're taking those.
I would like to
When
see
he's really
her
hitting it,
try
we're taking it down a little bit.
chasing me away.
All right, so
Cool.
let's add the band in.
Oh, airplane, high above the desert.
Loud up here. Now.
Yeah, but not. I mean, it's not that they're loud; it's that everything else doesn't make it up here. It's not sounds.
Floating in a haze.
You're more down a little bit.
I would like to
So it sounds okay downstairs when it's all.
try chasing me away.
Let's go listen downstairs. Critical listening.
Now, are you going to practice more vocals because then people can go easily, or do you want to mix more?
Well, the goal.
The little dress I bought you is tight.
No, but yeah, you've got like you can do like vocals or you can do vocals.
Right, right.
Don't stop.
There we go. Sorry, pissed off drummer. So, acoustic guitar down is something I heard. What else do you guys think? Or do you like the acoustic? Okay. Anything else? How are the vocals?
I thought they were a little hot.
They're a little hot, aren't they?
A little hot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? How's the drums and bass?
I was actually listening to like the whole room, so I wasn't even hearing the song.
I
wasn't
see.
even listening to the song that much. But
Okay.
what did you guys think? What did you think, Josh?
I thought kick was fine.
Okay.
Says the vocals.
Yeah, the vocals I thought were too high.
Okay.
It's hard to pick up the keys because they're.
Should we bring the keys up a little bit?
I don't know.
Let's try that. Here, I'll do it.
The lyrics we had to search for them, but they were driving the song pretty well.
Okay, I'll bring keys up and vocals down a little bit.
Wow, there's no dead spots.
Rolling down the river, holding on to nowhere. Nothing as the days go by. I would like to see her try chasing me away. Children talking with their mouths full, they're running through the kitchen, counting as the days go.
Let's switch the piano to bass to make the bass track more than the piano does.
I'm hearing too much keys as well. But
Too many
the voice
keys?
is perfect now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll bring the
Keys are not driving it.
keys are down a little bit.
Speaker rolling down the river, holding on to nowhere. Nothing as the days go by. I would like to see her try chasing me away. Children talking with their mouths full, they're running through the kitchen, counting as the days go by. I would like to see her try chasing me away. Philosophy.
Okay, cool. So that's some basic. Oh, they're down there still. I get up here so quick. It's funny.
Bananas and apples.
Are we gonna be able to sound check the cajon? Can you play it?
We could. I mean, if we have time. I mean, it's not for tomorrow, but
Oh, it's not?
we're not playing it tomorrow. We're doing electric drums tomorrow.
Oh.
But I mean, if there's time,
No,
then
no, no,
that makes
good.
sense.
I was probably wouldn't it'd be too much for Sunday morning to try to.
I'm already kind of concerned about Sunday morning,
Yes.
tomorrow morning, with that. What time do you think we'll be done today? Thinking about having the band come if they can. A
Today?
little practice. Not for this, but after, so I could just like run through songs with him.
So you missed your
Oh.
rehearsal.
Yeah, I missed my rehearsal.
Oh, so
And
you
we
want
only
a little more
have-
time.
We only have like an hour
I see.
to run through songs.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because
And not
I
all
have
of
to
them are
leave
like-
at like 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not talking about for training. I'm just saying, just so I know, like.
Yeah, so let's shift focus then to getting the stage set up and check everything and get it ready
Okay.
for,
Oh,
and then
people
let's
can
run
do
through
it.
there.
Okay.
So, okay.
Cool.
Cool. So that was good. You guys were able to listen, do some critical listening, pick things apart, and do all that. So, very good. That's it. So, console good. You guys clear on the console?
What's the 2 buttons left and right?
Which ones?
The ones above the.
Those are snapshots. So we can make snapshots for songs. So you could have a snapshot is just fader positions and mutes. So that's when you would do snapshots. You would do a snapshot for one song, mix it a certain way, and then the next song you would create another snapshot, mix it that way, and store it. So that way during the service you just hit next snapshot every time you change a song.
Is it a macro to save the snapshot?
And then it goes like, and then your faders move to where it needs to go. So
Your monitors and stuff stay the same then.
there's a macro for save snapshot, I think. Where is it? Update snapshot. That's what you hit.
Is that true? No, your
What's that?
monitors and that kind of stuff would stay the same then?
Yeah, those all stay the same. The scope, it
yeah,
only
I'm
affects
on
fader
that.
positions and mutes. That's it. But your monitors aren't going to change at all. Once your monitors are dialed in, they're dialed in. You don't change them during a show or during a service. So.
Depends on what kind of band you have.
Yeah, that's true. You would change your monitors in certain situations, if you had a monitor engineer or something, you would change it, because that's what he does the whole song. Instead of mixing out